Okay, welcome to another video. So Ubuntu 21.04 has just been officially released along with all of the other flavours. Now the plan for me is over the next few days to take a look at the main version of Ubuntu as well as some of the other flavours that they have to offer. So I wasn't quite sure how I was going to start my little run through, but reading the MATE 21.04 release notes has got me quite excited to check this one out first. So what we're going to do is have a very quick glance at the release notes and then we'll jump straight into it. So first up we have the MATE desktop teams release maintenance updates for the current stable 1.24 release of MATE. We've updated the MATE packaging in Debian to incorporate all of these bug fixes and translation updates and sync those packages to Ubuntu so they all feature in this 21.04 release. We then have some updates to the Ayatana indicators which were first introduced in Ubuntu MATE 20.10. So they've added new versions of the Ayatana indicators, including indicator settings to the control center, which can be used to configure the installed indicators. They've added a new printer indicator, which is going to be replacing the legacy printer applet. And unfortunately, they've had to remove Redshift due to a bug that's prevented its inclusion in 21.04. But they hope to either reintroduce it in a future version or find a potential alternative. So one of the big new features of this release, and where a lot of the work has been invested, is Yaru MATE. Created in collaboration with the Yaru team, Yaru MATE is only providing a light and dark theme, with the light theme being the default. Offering just the light and dark variants also ensures better application compatibility. This work has touched on a number of projects, and here's what Ubuntu MATE now enjoys as a result of Yaru MATE. So we have GTK 2, 3 and 4 Yaru MATE light and dark themes. We have the Suru icons along with a number of new icons specifically made for the MATE desktop and Ubuntu MATE. LibreOffice Yaru MATE icon theme, which are enabled by default on new installs. Font contrast is much improved throughout the desktop and applications, and little things like that are very important. Websites on a dark mode at the operating system level. So in return for the excellent theme and icons from the Yaru team, the Ubuntu MATE team worked on the following, which are now features of Yaru and Yaru MATE. We have Pixel Perfect Marco Metacity Compiz window manager theme that matches your Yaru GNOME shell window rendering. All icons in these themes are SVG for improved high DPI support. GTK source view 2, 3 and 4 style based on the vanilla color palette. So as a result of all of our window manager and GTK source view contributions, it is now possible to use all three upstream Yaru themes from Ubuntu in Ubuntu MATE. Very nice. Now to go the extra mile and make Yaru MATE really shine, they've also created some new themes for Plank that match the Yaru MATE for side and bottom docks. They've patched the Marco window manager to disable shadows on side tiled windows. Now under Yaru MATE snaps, they make a point of saying Snapd will soon be able to automatically install snaps of themes that match your currently active theme. The snaps we've created are ready to integrate with that capability when it is available. Next up we have something that I'm definitely very interested to check out, which is Mutiny. So Mutiny's been a desktop layout on Ubuntu MATE for quite some time. However, I thought they might have even been removing it in this new version, but fortunately they've just made a few changes to it which we'll check out once we are fully installed. So they've removed the MATE dock applet from Ubuntu MATE and refactored the Mutiny layout to use Plank instead, which I think is probably quite a good idea. There's also some new command line applications installed out of the box. Raspberry Pi images are on the way, and there's some more updates to the major applications. Now the ISO size for this one is 2.8 GB, and with that being said, let's jump into the ISO. And here we are. So we are going to be installing this natively, so as per usual, for those of you who like to skip the installation parts of these videos, there'll be a timestamp right below that will take you straight to the installed desktop. With that being said, let's get this installed. So first up, I need to choose my keyboard layout, which for me is going to be English UK, and then we can jump to the next step. So for updates and other software, we can go for a full fat normal installation, or we can slim things down and go for the minimal installation, which just includes a web browser and some basic utilities. I'm going to stick with the normal installation and also install third-party software and continue. So for installation type, we can either do something else, which is where you're going to sort of manually create the partitions yourselves, or you can stick with the default erase disk and install Ubuntu MATE and let the installer create the default partition layout for you, which is what I'm going to do. So we're going to continue to the next step, where we're going to choose which drive we're going to be using for our install. That's now going to create us 2 partitions, one for our ESP and then the rest is all assigned to your root partition, with ext4 being your default file system. And then next up we've got to choose where we are, and it's already got London for me, which is all good, so let's press continue. And now we're going to do the last step, which is creating our user account. So we're going to call this Tyler and we'll call the computer MATE. Type in our password, and I'm also going to log in automatically, and if I was a user of this I could also configure Active Directory straight from within the installer. And there we go, that's everything. So I'll pause the video here and then come back once this has finished. Okay, so the installation has complete in no time at all, taking just a few minutes on my machine. With that being said, let's reboot and check out our freshly installed Ubuntu MATE 21.04 desktop. Okay, well, so here we are, and already this new theme is making everything look a whole lot nicer. And I know that we're only on the desktop and looking at the welcome screen at the moment, but comparing this to when I checked out Ubuntu MATE 20.10, which I installed earlier to refresh my memory, the difference really is night and day. This new default theme has really brightened things up and made it look a lot more modern out of the box. Now first things first, we do have some updates to go ahead and grab, so I'll pause the video here and then come back once they're finished. Okay, so we're going to go through the welcome screen in just a moment, but for now I'm going to press do not send on the telemetry and remove this from my auto start so we can do a quick reboot and see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot before we make any changes to our system. Okay, so we are back off a fresh boot and we've just run htop in a new terminal window, which is installed out of the box on Ubuntu MATE 21.04. And as far as RAM usage is going, that's looking pretty decent to be fair, so we're using just under 700 MB at around about 682, and we can see just below that we do indeed have our 2 GB swap file. Now while I've got the terminal window open, the fonts are looking very easy to actually see. I don't know if that's due to the new contrast or the theming, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Now included out of the box is NeoFetch, and while we're here we can have a look at the new ASCII art for the Ubuntu MATE logo and check the kernel version is indeed version 5.11.0-16. Package wise, we've got just short of 2000 installed out of the box at 1944, and then we also have 7 snap applications. So if we do a quick snap list, we can see what applications those are. So we have Core 18, GTK theme Yaru MATE, Icon theme Yaru MATE, Snapd, and then we have the Software Boutique, which is kind of like your application store for MATE. And then we also have the Ubuntu MATE welcome screen, which I didn't actually know was a snap. Okay, so I think what we're going to do before we go through the welcome screen to do some post-installation steps that a new user might go through, we're going to have a little look at how the default desktop layout is set up, which is familiar, because then we're going to spend a little bit of time checking out a few of the others, mainly focusing on Mutiny and the changes that have been made in this release. But before we do that, let's get our new wallpaper. So we're going to go to change desktop background and look for the little hippo face and apply the new wallpaper. There we go. So the default desktop layout is of course familiar, which is a nice 2-panel layout with your panel at the top housing your application launcher. We have one quick launch icon for Firefox as our default web browser. We then have our little settings here so we can get to things like about this computer, switch off, log out, etc. And then just to the left of that we have our clock, our volume slider, notifications and our connections. Now to the bottom of the screen we have our show desktop button, so if we just open up our file manager of Kazaa and then press that, it's going to minimize all running applications, and then pressing it again will of course restore them in their previous position, and all of your applications will minimize down to the bottom bar by default. We then have our workspace switcher, and out of the box we have 4 to choose from, and then just to the right of that we have our recycle bin or trash can for Ubuntu MATE. You can of course do a right click on any of the panels to get into the panel properties or to add new applets to the panel. So for example, we've got things here like global menus and all of that good stuff. But with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it with the Ubuntu MATE welcome screen. So using left super to open up the application launcher, I'm just going to type in welcome, and then we're going to run through this and do some of the post installation steps, and then we'll play around with the color selection and the desktop layouts. So we're going to go straight into it with getting started. So we've got updates and extras. We don't need to do that, we're already up to date, so we'll leave that one for now. Drivers, language and input, and then we have some optional tasks. So under here we can configure our backup, firewall and user management, and the backup tool it's going to be using is DejaDup, which is a very handy little backup tool that can do it over network shares as well as online accounts. I'm sure a lot of you have used the GNOME desktop before, have probably seen that here or there. And now let's close that, and then just below that we can configure our network shares. However, we do need to go ahead and press this button to install Samba. We then have our GUFW firewall, so if we press that, We can then get to the front end of the firewall, which is a very simple firewall tool for profile, status, incoming and outgoing, and we've got the rules report and the log. And then last but not least, we can jump straight into it with the user management. So let's go back and see what else we've got. We then have, under familiarity, customization, keyboard shortcuts and system specifications, and we'll spend some time going through the keyboard shortcuts a little bit later on in this video. So we're going to check out customization for now. So that's just going to give you a quick button to get into the control center, which of course is where it's going to house all of the settings for your desktop, which we'll get into again in just a moment. So let's go back. We then have the community links there for the community and chat room, and then we have the software boutique, which is going to feature applications that we can go ahead and install, but again we'll check all that out in just a moment as well. So then we have our browser selection, where you can install some additional web browsers, and out of the box we can either choose to install Chromium, Vivaldi, Edge, Google Chrome, Opera and Brave. So to test this out and how easy it is, we're going to go ahead and test it with the Brave web browser. So with a single click there, it should go ahead and ask us for a password prompt, and then after that it will go ahead and install the Brave browser for us. So I'll pause the video here and come back once it's finished. Okay, so the Brave web browser has installed nice and easy, and we can even from the same application window in the welcome screen go ahead and then set that as our default web browser as opposed to the default of Firefox. And we can also press the little trash can there just to delete the application entirely. So a very easy way for a new user to get set up with an additional web browser straight from the first time they start up their computer. Next up we have the color selection. So with the new themes here, so we've got Yaru MATE, and we also have the older style of ambient MATE. We have the colors. So by default we've got these nice little colors here with the green shadow just behind it as the folder is opening. And here's what all your new icons look like, but we'll go through the applications in just a moment as well. So I think what we're going to do is test out some of these other colors. I don't know if there's any installed out of the box. No, so we've got a whole palette of different colors here, so we're going to do a couple of clicks and install a couple to test out some different colors, and I think we'll test out the blue and the purple. So with a simple single click on there for install, we shouldn't need to input our password again, and then that's going to go ahead and install that. It shouldn't take too long to install the color, so it's installing the packages now, and then we should be pretty much done right about now. And it appears to have already applied it for us. Let me just press the apply button as well and see if that makes any changes. There we go, so we can see that the accent colors are now blue as opposed to the green, so you can see in our workspace switcher there, as well as our show desktop icon, and then in our sidebar of our file manager we have the blue accent colors for a folder that is highlighted, and in your sort of title bar action buttons have also got the nice blue there as well. Okay, very cool. Now I want to test out the purple. I think we're probably going to leave it on the default green though, because it blends very nicely with the rest of the MATE desktop. And there we go, so that one has now installed as well, and again it does appear to have automatically applied it, but let's just click it once more to let everything take effect. And there we go, so we've got the same sort of stuff happening there, but instead of the blue we are now using the purple colour shade. So I think what I will do though is leave it on the default, and then we'll move down to the variants of the light and dark theming. So for the light and dark variants, I must say I'm not usually a light theme kind of guy, but this new light theme does look very nice on Ubuntu MATE, and I'd be quite tempted to leave it on that and not straight away switch to the dark theme, but we'll check out the dark theme and then we'll probably switch it back to the light. So pressing apply, it should be nice and quick, no need to close the application window and then open it again to repaint it with the new dark theme. And now if we open up our file manager, we can see what our file manager looks like with the new dark theming. And there we go, and of course with a full screen application, everything is looking very nice. Brilliant. So I think I am going to leave it on the light theme, which is something I don't usually say, so let's go ahead and apply the light theme. Okay, let's close that all off now because we're going to spend a little bit of time going over the desktop layouts. And here we are, and it's something that's very good about MATE and Ubuntu MATE in particular is the different desktop layouts pre-configured out of the box, which should pretty much suit any workflow that you might need. And what's good about it as well is you can kind of just use it as a starting point and then make further changes to it later and really fine-tune how you're going to use your desktop. Now of course our default theme is familiar, but if we press show more you can see that we do have quite a few additionals there. So we have familiar, Mutiny, which is the Unity-like desktop layout, which we'll spend a bit of time going through. We then have Redmond, which is a Windows style, Cupertino, which is a Mac OS kind of theme. We then have Pantheon, Netbook, Contemporary and Traditional. Now we're not going to go through all of them, we're just going to sort of go through the top row. So we're going to start with Cupertino. Cupertino is going to give you a dock at the bottom of your screen and then a panel at the top with a global menu, and let's see what that looks like. So with a single click, no waiting around whatsoever. So let's minimize this and we should be able to then see that we do indeed have the global menu. So if we open up our application here for Kajo, you can see that the options are now not in the window, it's in the top panel here, so it sort of gives you a lot more room on your actual applications window, and you can jump into any of the settings you might need straight from the top left of your panel. Now we saw that the dock is set to intelligently hide, so if we right click onto Plank and go into the preferences, we can see the new theming that we do have installed. So we have Yaru Light for the dock, we also have a Yaru Dark, so if we was using the dark theme, and we then have the blue and purples that we installed, and then we have Ubuntu MATE, and then we have the Mutiny Light and Dark, which are going to be utilised in the new sort of revamped Unity layout, Mutiny, which we'll spend a nice bit of time going through in just a moment. Okay, now let's go back into the welcome screen and see what other desktop layouts we're going to check out. So I think we'll go to Redmond, which is the Windows style, which is going to give us a single panel at the very bottom of our screen. Very nice and simple, with the application launcher again to the left with the search bar at the top. We then have a few sort of local volumes right there. As you can see, it says SSD, and that's pretty much it there for the Windows style Redmond desktop layout. So the one that I'm most interested in checking out and seeing how it's all working is of course going to be Mutiny. So let's go ahead and apply the Mutiny layout. Okay, and there we go. Now I do see a bit of weird, yeah, that looks like it's kind of over the top of the top panel, so I think what I might do is log out and log back in and see if that aligns the paneling properly. And here we are at the login screen for those that are interested in what the default look for the login screen is. Okay, so I think that has fixed the sort of alignment issues that we was having with the plank and the panel there. So if we open up an application now, we no longer have the global menu in this present theme, and if we full screen it, you'll notice that this is still on the right and not the left hand side of the screen or in the panel. So I think what we're going to do is go to right click on the preferences here, and then we of course are using the Mutiny Light layout, and the application launcher is now the full screen application launcher, and that will be the same for the Cupertino layout. So we have all of our categories at the top here with a search bar just at the top of that, and if we right click on any application, we can then pin that to our favourites, which will appear in your first page of your favourites, and then of course we can unpin it, and then we've got nothing there in our favourites. So I think what we'll do before I go ahead and add a global menu is see what this theme looks like with the dark Ubuntu Yaru MATE theme. So let's go back into the welcome screen. We can of course change it in the preferences as well, but I'm going to see if it changes everything from the welcome screen, including the dock to the left, which I think it might not, and we might need to manually change this ourselves. So we're going to go back to the color selection, and we're going to press the dark variant right about there, and see what this looks like with the dark theme. There we go. So as I thought, it's not going to change the theme automatically for you in Plank. So to do that, we're going to go and press right click with preferences, and we're going to change it to the Mutiny Dark, and then we can see nice. So I think for the Mutiny layout in particular, it does actually look better with the dark theme, especially when you full screen an application. Now what I do want to do though is go ahead and add a global menu and make sure there's no weird issues with that, and then I'll be pretty much a happy bunny. So let's go press right click and go to add to panel, and then we're going to search for global menu, which is right there. Okay, so we've got a global menu. It doesn't appear to be quite aligned to the right of our application launcher, so if we just go to move, we should be able to get it right nice and snug in that corner. And there we go, perfect. So I'm a massive fan of the Unity layout, and I'm glad that it is still here to stay on Ubuntu MATE. I am going to switch it back to the default familiar layout while we look for the rest of this desktop distribution. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through the out-of-the-box applications, but we're not going to spend too much time here at all, because I don't think too much has really changed from the previous time we looked at Ubuntu MATE. So under accessories, we have our Deja Dark backup tool, we have the ngrappa archive manager, MATE calculator, Plank, which is going to be used for the docs in the different desktop layouts, and Pluma is our GUI text editor. In administration, we have printers, software and updates, software boutique, software updater, user groups and welcome, and this can all be accessed from the MATE control center as well. So in graphics, we have the document scanner, the Eye of Mate image viewer, the MATE color selection and Shotwell. So for internet, we have as default our web browser is Firefox, and then we've got transmission to manage torrents. And now in Office, we have the full LibreOffice suite, and the desktop email client that we are using out of the box is a personal favorite of mine, which is Evolution. Now while we're in here, we're going to quickly open up LibreOffice Writer, double check the version that we are using and make sure it's all working out of the box with no problems. So let's get rid of the tips. And then first up, we're going to make sure that the dictionary has all been added out of the box as one would expect on an Ubuntu distribution. And then we're going to go to About LibreOffice, and we can see that we are using a nice new version of 7.1.2.2. Now in preferences, again, you've got a lot of your settings for the MATE desktop, like appearance, additional drivers, and then we have the indicators, which we are going to spend a fair bit of time going through once we've gone through the rest of these applications, which is to manage the Ayatana indicators. So if we go into sound and video, your default media players are Celluloid or Rhythm Box, which isn't my favourite music player, but at least it's got one installed out of the box. And then we have Webcamoid, which replaced Cheese in the previous version of Ubuntu MATE, and it's a very good application and a lot more that you can do with it when just using Cheese. So it's kind of like a sort of a slimmed down version of OBS. So if I quickly open it up for you, you'll notice that by default it's going to have a screen of your desktop, and you can also add additional sources and just really play around with things and do a whole lot more than just a simple webcam tool like Cheese can do. Then in System Tools we have our file manager of Kazaa, and then GDebi is to install .deb packages with a GUI. And now in Universal Access we have Magnus, which is our screen magnifier. Onboard is our on-screen keyboard, and then we have the Orca screen reader. Now we're going to jump straight back into it with the indicators and see how that's all working now. So here we are with the Ayatana indicator settings. So as you can see, we're currently in the session view, and we've got a few options here. So the first one, and we'll try a few of these out, is show full username on the panel. So as you can see at the moment, all we've got is our default sort of indicators there, as well as the time. So we're going to go ahead and enable the username. And there we go, so we've now got my username right next to the settings button, and let's see what a right click does to it. So a right click pretty much does exactly the same as what it would do if you was just to press the settings button. And then again we can go ahead and remove it like so. Okay, very easy. So we can also remove the logout item from the menu. I'm not sure why you'd want to, but there is your logout menu item, and let's just make sure that that is working. And there you go, so as you can see, logout is no longer present in our menu, but we're going to be keeping logout there. We can then also suppress the logout, restart and shutdown confirmation, remove the restart item from the menu, remove the shutdown item from the menu, and then we can also show the user list in the menu, which is already enabled, and it's right about there. Okay, I quite like this so far. It's quite cool to have this sort of configuration over your indicators. So for date and time, we can choose quite a few things here. So we have show the year on the panel, show the month and date on the panel, show the day of the week on the panel. Okay, let's try a couple of these out. So the day of the week, there we go, we can now see it's Friday, and we can also enable it to show us the date as well, so we can see that it's Friday, April the 23rd, 10:44. Okay, I like that a lot. Show the number of seconds on the panel. Okay, cool, I'm going to leave it like that so I can pretty much see exactly what the date and time is down to the very second. Brilliant. And we can even show numbers in the calendar. Perfect. Now in sound, we can also set it to allow setting the volume above 100%, which is something that I'm not going to do. Now for power, if we was running on a laptop or anything with a battery, we could show the percentage on the panel, and we can also show time on the panel, which is going to be sort of your remaining time, I'd imagine. Now I currently can't use messages or Bluetooth because I have no Bluetooth on this machine. And then we have our notifications and we have our keyboard. Okay, cool. I think what we're going to do now is go through some of the other settings like the keyboard shortcuts, and then we'll start playing around with things and install some new applications. And here in the MATE Control Center is where it's going to house all of the sort of administration sort of stuff and settings you're going to want to go through for your MATE desktop. So as you can see, we have administration and hardware, and we can jump to things like disks and displays, and disks, it is going to be using GNOME disks. So we're going to quickly jump into the keyboard shortcuts and see what some of the default shortcuts are. Okay, cool. So it is nice to see that there is a specific section for the accessibility, which is going to make users of the universal access applications and tools be able to very easily quickly toggle them as and when we need them. So we have the toggle magnifier, toggle screen reader, and the on-screen keyboard. So the magnifier is Magnus, and we're going to give that a go now and see how quick and easy it is to launch the magnification tool on our desktop. So the shortcut for that is Alt, Mod 4 and M, which is going to be Alt, Left Super and M. So let's give that a go. There we go. So now we have our nice little sort of magnification tool there. Very quick and easy to get to, straight from within our keyboard shortcuts. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Magnus as a magnification tool per se, but it is nice to have it all set up out of the box for those that do need to use it, as well as having the keyboard shortcut ready to go. So let's close that off. Now what I want to do is see some of the shortcuts for moving across the desktops. So by default, to switch to your next your left or right workspaces, you're going to use the Control, Alt and then directional keys. So let's give that a go. And there we go, so we get a nice little sort of display overview of the workspace that we are currently on, and it's going to show the applications icon window sort of there, so you can see what's on each workspace. So as we can see on the first workspace, we have the keyboard shortcuts, and if we open up our file manager on the second workspace and then do the same thing again, you can then see it's going to give you a folder icon on your second workspace there, letting you know exactly what you do have open. Perfect. Now let's go back to our first workspace, and we're just going to see what the splitting is. It should have by default window splitting left and right with the super and left and right keys, and we're just going to go ahead and test that right now. So using super and left, we can then snap our windows side by side. So let's also open up our file manager and see how that all works, splitting things side by side using our left and super keys. Brilliant. So let's now restore them to their normal size. And I think what we're going to do is open up the Software Boutique and try and install a few applications and see how we go. Okay, so here we are in Software Boutique, which is a little bit different from some of the other application stores. So as you can see here, there is an abundance of software available for Ubuntu MATE, and some people find that choice overwhelming. The Boutique is a carefully curated selection of the best-in-class applications, chosen because they integrate well, complement Ubuntu MATE and enable you to self-style your computing experience. If you can't find what you're looking for, install one of the software centers to explore the complete Ubuntu software catalog. Now I'm going to imagine the applications that I want to go ahead and install are in here in the curated list. Let's test that out now. So we have a search bar right here. Now the first application we're going to go ahead and install is Steam, because we're going to test out a game of CSGO to make sure that's all working without any issues. So we're going to press install, and that's going to go straight to your queue, so you can do a bulk installation of a list. So as you can see here, we have one item of Steam, and we're going to add another, which is going to be GIMP, like so. So let's go ahead and install that, and let's see if we can also grab VirtualBox from here as well. We can indeed, so we're also going to install VirtualBox from the Software Boutique. Now we're going to go into our queue there, so you can see we have the bulk queue of 3 applications waiting to be installed. So let's go ahead and press apply changes and let that run through the installation. Okay, so all of our applications have now been installed, and that includes all of the ones that we installed in the Software Boutique, which were Steam, GIMP and VirtualBox. And I've also gone ahead and installed the snap package of Kdenlive, which we're going to use to edit today's video. Now before we test out some of these applications, I did want to show you some of the appearance settings here. So if we minimize these for now and jump straight into the appearance, we can see that we're currently on custom and we're using the Yaru Lite theme. But if we go on to customize, we can see that we are indeed using Yaru MATE Lite. But if we go into the icons now, we can see what other icons are included out of the box. So we have the ambient MATE icon theme there, and then we have the blue and the purple, bearing in mind we applied them in the welcome screen. We then have high contrast, gnome, the humanity icons, MATE, Mentor, Numix Lite, Numix, and then some more of the radiant, and that's pretty much everything. Okay, I think what we're going to do now is test out some of these applications and play a round or two of CSGO to make sure frame rates are all looking nice and everything is working as we'd expect it to. Okay, and here we are. So all of our applications have launched absolutely fine, and as you can see here, GIMP has a full global menu support out of the box, which is very nice to see. The Kdenlive snap package didn't appear to have global menu support working right away, but we won't worry about that for now. And then there you can see we have the snap version of Kdenlive. And then last but not least, we have a VirtualBox, which is running very snappy, and I've even had time to quickly install the minimal Ubuntu MATE ISO just so I can show you what packages you do have included out of the box on the minimal install. Let's just get that back up there. There we go. So if we go straight into the application launcher and just go to all, we'll just quickly scroll through, and then you can see there's a lot missing. So for example, you won't have LibreOffice and all of that good stuff, but it gives you a nice blank canvas to install any programs you want. That doesn't mean that you don't have access to all of the nice different desktop layouts. As you can see here in MATE Tweak, we can still very easily jump to the Mutiny layout and press OK, and then there it is going to make the new layout for us. So I definitely recommend, if you like something a bit more sort of lightweight and a blank canvas to customize yourself, go ahead and give the minimal install a try. So we've just jumped into a random online game of CSGO, and we're just going to run around for a few seconds, keeping an eye on the frame rate and making sure everything is nice and smooth and we're getting no issues. And so far everything is running nice and smoothly, so we're up at around 200 FPS, dipping to the sort of 180s. That's pretty much what I would expect on this hardware. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up my run through of the newly released Ubuntu MATE 21.04 there. But overall, I've really enjoyed the time I've spent with it. Now, I've always been quite a big fan of Ubuntu MATE. I think it's a very good desktop, and I like how versatile it is with the different desktop layouts to suit whatever workflow you use. And this new version, along with the new theming, has just really tied everything up and gave it a whole lot more of a modern look. If you'd like to try it yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also join the Discord. There's a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.